Excellent. And then so I guess as it grew, did you build it out to be bigger and bigger, or has it been more of like, in addition to other things that you've been working on, type of organization?
Kind of some of both. I've never gone down the path of building it into like a full-blown large agency, bringing other people on.
Okay.
Which is one path I could have gone down, because certainly there's been a fair amount of demand. But I don't know that I necessarily want to be an agency.
Sure.
Just because I always have some other technology projects of my own that I want to work on.
Sure.
And agency life can be a little bit of a rat race. So it's more so just helping out people that I like on different projects when I have the time. And sometimes I've done it where, I go full-time, whole hog doing some projects, but most of the time it's just things that I do on the side. As you can see, I have quite a few different projects that I'm involved in. So, I'm a little spread thin.
Sure, definitely. So let's talk about your other project, the Chief Marketers in Los Angeles. So tell me more about that and what made you want to start that organization or co-found that organization.
Yeah, so that I co-founded with a good friend of mine, Mark Layden, who is also my former boss a few companies back. Mm-hmm. And the two of us just got together and realized, hey, it would really be great, because we'll get together and talk shop and figure out, like, what have you been doing that is working well? And, hey, what do you think about XYZ and whatever? And realize there's not really an organization like that here in Los Angeles for just marketing people, higher level marketing people to get together and talk shop like that. And we wanted to create a forum where it wasn't a paid thing. You don't have to have a membership that's going to cost you $1,000 a year or something like that. Mm-hmm. Where you can just come together with different CMOs and VPs of marketing and discuss like what some of your top concerns are, or share contacts, share ideas, get feedback on some of your ideas from other people who really understand what your challenges are as a person heading up marketing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is it an independent organization, or are there other like branches in other parts of the United States or other parts of the world?
It's independent. Okay. So it's just us, and we have a collection of CMOs and VPs of marketing here in Los Angeles. We've talked about whether we want to create the same thing in other cities. But so far we've been doing it just here in LA and meeting like a few times per year. We actually have, another one on the calendar for September. So, planning out into the fall already.
Sure. Okay, great. Well, if you guys ever come out to Boston, let me know, because, I would have loved to have an organization like this the few times I was the CMO of a tech startup.
Oh, yeah, right? You understand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I totally get it. Where you're like kind of on your own in a little island sometimes. Just
exactly.
Trying to find other people who are doing something similar. And it's always nice to have other people to chat with who are also going through the same struggles and issues and
exactly
same challenges.
Yeah. And learn from each other and help support each other.
Yeah, exactly. So now you're working with, Gem. Is that how, is it? Can I make sure I'm pronouncing that correctly?
Yep, you got it.
With cryptocurrency companies and tech companies, sometimes you're never quite sure if it's actually pronounced the way it looks like it's spelled. So I guess first, what got you interested in cryptocurrency and this project in particular?
Sure. So I've been kind of following cryptocurrency for quite some time. Just kind of the rise of Bitcoin, and I started taking more note, I guess, when Bitcoin was around $2,000, probably earlier last year, is when I started to pay even more attention to it. And since I've always worked in tech, I've always worked with a lot of engineers and technical people who tend to gravitate to crypto sooner than the rest of the world. So, I'd been part of conversations about that and hearing about it. And kind of kept my eye on the market, especially as Bitcoin really had that meteoric rise. Although I still didn't, it took me a little bit to jump in from an investment standpoint. And really the tipping point for me, I have to say, was CryptoKitties. Because I can't have more cats in real life. I've got two. That's enough. So I was like, well, obviously I need to collect some digital cats. And it was just kind of an interesting thing for me. I found out about it super early, a day or two after they launched. So I was, sort of jumping on that train in the early days of the CryptoKitties.
And do you own CryptoKitties right now?
I do. Yeah. I've got a little stable of kitties, and
very nice.
It was worth.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Keep going.
I was gonna say it was worth it's a little challenging to figure out, even though I'm a little more technical, I think, than your average marketer, it's still a little daunting. The whole process of figuring out how do I set up a wallet and purchase Ether, and how do I transfer it, and what is MetaMask, and how do I get these things? But I was determined to get my cats. So went through the process, and I'm happy I did it. And that sort of, from there, my interest only grew. And, then I started looking at, maybe I should invest in some coins too, and not just these cats. And so that's how I kind of started to cultivate the interest in crypto. Plus, being in technology, I'm always looking for what's new and different, and how are things, what's going to change the world? How are things trending that are really going to impact our day to day? And so that's why I've been keeping my eye on things like AI and crypto and stuff like that. So, for me, GEM was just a really interesting opportunity because I really, had been learning more about the crypto space. I was very interested in the crypto space. I think blockchain and decentralization will have a huge impact, on our day to day lives. Over time, I think it'll take a little bit of time to get to the mainstream, but I think that I think it's going to happen. And I actually was having a conversation over LinkedIn with a guy I'd worked with a few companies back, and we were talking about blockchain and crypto specifically. And a week later, he got an email from the head of people operations over at GEM that they were looking for a marketing person. So he forwarded that to me and said, "Hey, are you interested? Because we just talked about this." And then the rest is history.
Oh, that's great. So I guess specifically, since now you've worked previously with tech companies, are there differences that you've noticed in how you're approaching the marketing of your product in what you would do with, let's say, like a traditional tech company versus what you're doing now with a cryptocurrency company?
There definitely are some differences. I think because some differences, some similarities. So because crypto has had kind of an unfortunate reputation with some of the frauds and scam projects and things like that. And those are the ones that you hear about. Whereas there really are a lot of really great legitimate use cases, really great projects and companies coming up through. But I think, we really have to fight some of those negative stereotypes that are forming. So that's one challenge. That's a little bit different. And then as a result, from a marketing perspective, you've got companies like Facebook and Google and Taboola and Twitter and MailChimp and LinkedIn, banning some cryptocurrency ads. So it makes it a little more challenging. Not that you're, going to rely 100% on ads, but even, distributing your content and things like that, it makes it a little bit more challenging. So you have to work around some of those limitations, which just means you have to be more creative and more resourceful. That's all.
Sure.
So I would say those are some of the differences. In terms of similarities, just like any tech company, tech startup, where you're in a field that is fairly new at the moment, the beginning stages, you're doing a lot of education of the market and trying to improve people's general understanding and comfort with it. And that's been typical of a few of the companies that I've been with, where the product that they've created is still kind of new and doesn't have broad appeal yet. So the marketing that you do in those early stages is very different from the marketing you do as the market grows and as your company grows. So those are some of the similarities where, in that sense, it's a lot like the path other tech companies have had to take.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit more about your own personal learning curve in some of these companies? Because, well, I know, like, for example, in cryptocurrency and in my own journey into it, especially not coming from an engineering background, there's a lot of technical aspects you kind of have to catch up on and learn about and read about, and then you have to know it well enough to translate it to the general public or other people who are interested in your product can then understand what you're talking about. So, I guess, so how have you approached that in other tech industries you've worked on and also in the cryptocurrency space?
Well, I think the first thing is just to always be seeking knowledge and, reading as much as you can get your hands on, trying to keep up with what's going on in the industry, asking a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. You really can't be afraid to ask questions of people who are the experts. So having those conversations, I think, is really important to building up your understanding, because it's it's a rabbit hole. Right. You start to go down one path because oh yeah, this is a little bit tricky, and you start to get into it and you realize, oh my goodness, there's all this other stuff that I didn't even realize I didn't know. Yeah. So really, it's just talking to a lot of people and I mean, a lot of the people that I've talked to are really willing to answer questions. Mm-hmm. So I think just ask a lot of questions and be willing to, not try to pretend you know more than you do until you really do have like a better basis, a better foundation. Mm-hmm. And then even testing some of your assumptions. So let's say, I think I know about XYZ. And so when I'm doing my marketing, I'm coming up with this language, asking people, putting it in front of people who really understand the space and saying, hey, did I hit the nail on the head? Does this make sense? Or am I not positioning it correctly? And if so, what about this is not really resonating? And then incorporating that feedback. So you can't be like so tied to whatever you come up with that you're not willing to also see its shortcomings and evolve it and improve it. Because I think pretty much almost any project really is an iterative, evolutionary project. Like you're always going to make it better and better over time as your understanding grows. You have to have a starting point. You need to get it out there and everything. Mm-hmm. But really asking for feedback and not being afraid to ask questions if it's something that you don't know. And also like taking notes too. Like sometimes I'll hear an acronym or somebody will say a word that I don't know, and then I'll go look it up. So that way I do know.
Sure. So on the cryptocurrency side, like, are there like particular media sources you look for? Or, like, do you go like for Medium articles? Do you just read a bunch of white papers? Are there books that you're looking at? I guess I'm just trying to like pull out like where do you go for high level information, especially since there's just so much new information coming out there and not all of it is accurate.
Right. Yeah, I've been following news on sources like CoinDesk and CCN, mm-hmm. And things like that. And certainly when I come across people, I've come across a few Medium articles that are really good, that sort of break things down a little bit in terms of what certain things mean in crypto, okay. Just to help improve my understanding. So I've been looking at those sources as well. And then we've got, here in LA, we've got some meetups and other local groups that do some social events. So we'll go to those also. Just talking to people I find helps, and exposing yourself to it. The more times you hear things explained in a different way, the better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, generally I'm going to some of those online sources, and then there are like some newsletters I'm subscribed to that I read to sort of keep up with things. And because I'm on Telegram, we've got our community on Telegram, and I belong to a few other communities. I'm also kind of listening into what some of the Telegram community members are talking about. And I find that I've learned a lot there, things that I didn't even know to ask, but just the questions that they're asking and the discussions they're having have been really informative for me.
Sure. So on this channel, I don't think I've ever actually talked about Telegram before. Could you tell the listeners a little bit about what Telegram is, and does GEM have its own Telegram channel?
We do have our own Telegram channel, and that's Gem HQ is the